what I love most about Elden Ring? It's the fact that you can literally pull off an enemy's arm and make it one of the strongest weapons in the entire game. No joke, the new DLC has so many amazing options with so many cool Ashes of War. That is why today we'll take a look at 8 amazing missable weapons that you really want to get your hands on in the new DLC. Starting with the first one, or actually a couple of them, because you can find them in the same spot, which is going to be right here at the Prospect Town very early in the DLC. So they look a bit gnarly, maybe even boring, which is why at the first glance I was tempted to dismiss them. But then I took my full Arcane character, pumped one of these bad boys to plus 25, and then changed the scaling on the arm to bleed. And this, ladies and gents, is the absolute insanity of a result that we got right here. A blood loss build-up of 220. I believe this makes it the highest in the game, but no joke, that literally causes a bleed build-up within one single heavy hit. It doesn't matter what you hit, most of the things are going to immediately splatter all over the place. And this doesn't just come with an immense blood loss build-up, it's also going to have some of the highest damage because of the very good arcane and strength scaling. I haven't seen any other damage number on any other weapon in the DLC getting close to this. You're literally going to destroy enemies' HP bars with proper Ashes of War, which, by the way, you can totally use, like the Lion's Claw or its upgrade from the DLC. Also, Royal Knight's Resolve is a very good option to pull off huge damage numbers, and it's just going to get better the more you play with an arcane build. Also, its sister weapon, the Occult Fork, has some very cool advantages as well, so this also causes a ton of blood loss build-up. However, it still retains that effect even if you change its scaling to arcane, so you can totally have like an A scaling in that and use it on an arcane build. And this can be coupled with something like a blood tax. I think that works really well. It pokes enemies, obviously, because it is a spear. It does pierce damage, and it works very well with a shield in the other hand. You stay well protected, deal tons of damage, recuperate HP, and you also get to cause bleed buildup, which in my opinion is the best of all worlds. Anyway, going over another weapon that's absolutely busted, we have the Ancient Meteoric Ore Greatsword. Not only does this look absolutely stunning, its unique skill is also extremely powerful. It's the White Light Charge, and this is yet again another arcane scaling weapon. Well, strength and arcane, because its physical damage, of course, is boosted by strength, but its special unique skill is boosted a ton by having a lot of points into arcane, even though technically it is a magic spell ability. But it boosts up from the arcane stat, and you're going to deal insane amounts of damage. You kind of have this really cool charge up, which then you can detonate for some white lightning damage, which doesn't just deal like 3,000-4,000 very easily against any enemy. It also throws them back, or at the very least stuns them. So this has quickly become one of my favorite weapons in the entire game, and there's a whole build that I made surrounding this, as well as the previous 2 weapons. If you want to see it, let me know down below in the comments. But to get this, you need to head over southwest of the Murth Ruins at the Ruined Forge of Starfall Past dungeon. Once you go inside, you're just going to have to head over normally up this sort of small bridge and then open up the path ahead using the lever. From this point on, just follow the same route as I am. We need to head over to a second room that has a similar level with, of course, a blocked door. Just follow the same path, take up the ladder, and then continue forward from this point on. Circle around, and this is going to bring you to our location. Jump down from the platform, and now you're going to be in position for the second lever. Now open that door up and go onto the other side immediately. But stop here, look to your right, and then activate the lever behind the wall once more. Once you've done that, jump on the big gate, and this is going to go back one level, which is going to give you access to the room and the forge holding the item, as well as an ancient dragon smithing stone. Now the next one is the really awesome Dragon Hunter Great Katana. I really love this one because, yes, as the name implies, it is going to deal extra damage against dragon enemies. Specifically, its unique weapon skill is the one that gets a bonus. Its normal physical attacks do not. But it's going to deal tons of damage. It's also good at staggering them, and the jump on the skill is very good at hunting their freaking heads. So I really love this one. It has some really cool moves, and you get it from the Dragon Spit enemy right here south of that pillar path waypoint as you move down south from the road from Castle Anzis. So it's a pretty easy to reach area early on. Once you are inside of this, you're going to notice a big altar almost at the beginning with a gaping pit. Jump down, trust the process, you're not going to die, but instead reach a boss room. Once you defeat that enemy, you're going to get this great sword, which, as I've said, this whole process is also part of that dragon called questline in the DLC. Of course, the Dragon Hunter Great Katana is also going to gain bonus damage against this enemy, by the way. So if you're a new G+, you can definitely also use it against it. Now, I played with this against dragons. Even in the base version of the game, they still get absolutely destroyed by this attack. I really love the way it looks. The only problem I have with it is that it doesn't have a follow-up, nor does it imbue the weapon with anything. It also reaches some insane damage numbers, since of course this has a C scaling into both dex and strength at +9. Not sure at +10, since I'm kind of left without any ancient dragon smithing stones. Yeah, I'm kind of running out of them at this point. But the next options are also a pair of blades. It's the Sword of Darkness and the Sword of Light, which you can only get one per playthrough, but you can interchange them and go with the one you like. I prefer the one of Darkness because it's the much stronger variant, looks much cooler, you also get it much faster, and they both come with a very unique special effect, which unleashes either a very interesting 360 effect of darkness that completely destroys enemies, plus the riposte damage is very good, or you can go with the disco light version, the light version, which deals beams of light scattering around, which kinda behaves similarly. So for this, you need to get the stone sheathed sword, which you can only get once per playthrough from 3 distinct altars around the map. So one of them is going to be inside the Fog Rift Catacombs, another one is going to be right here at the Rao Ancient Ruins west, and then finally there's also another one right here at the ruins of Unte. So whichever one of these you get it from, it's going to spawn that sword right in front of it only once. And from that point on, you will need to use any of the other 2 altars to basically change it into the Sword of Darkness or of Light. You cannot use the same altar you got the weapon from to change it on the spot, unfortunately. So in my case, I got it from the Fog Rift Catacombs, which I'm going to assume most people also got it from. This is pretty much on the 2nd level, towards the end over there with the annoying enemy and of course all the collapsing ceilings. Eventually, as you make your way onto the opposite side and destroy that mage, you're going to notice that there's a small opening inside one of these collapsing walls. And what you want to do is to jump on it and make your way towards a secret path ahead. You can also open up a chest in the area, which gives you a very interesting new incantation. From this point on, jump on the rail and wait for that collapsible ceiling to go down once again, and then jump over it. And this is then going to give access to a final 2nd area in the back of the room, basically making a way over these, well, of course, contraptions, and eventually jumping to the right side. If you already got the weapon from somewhere else, you can actually use the altar right now to buff it into the Sword of Light. Or the Sword of Darkness, depends from which of the altar you actually got it first, but in my case it always seemed to be that I get it with the darkness effect. Now for the ruins of Unte, we're gonna need to power up that huge giant over there, but for that we're going to need some of those hefty furnace spots in the first place, which we will get the recipe for right here at the Rundown Traveler's Rest, very early on in the game, pretty much by the side of the Great Bridge. So make your way down these cliffs and eventually you can get it from an abandoned shack. And also some of the materials that you need to basically craft it, which should be enough to have one of them ready. From here, we can just travel to the Castle Watering Hole side of Grace and then make our way over there. You're going to need to go to the left side of the ruins and then use some of the nearby stairs and then collapsed walls to just make your way on the balcony facing the giant. From which point you can just throw that pot, it's going to fire it up, and this is going to then clear up the entrance. Be careful because the enemy attacks you, but inside on the right, you're going to find the altar. So in this case, if you didn't find the weapon here, it's now going to give you the possibility to change it to the Sword of the Night. At least that was the sequence that I followed. So if you got this one, which in my opinion is also the better option, plus you can get it much earlier than the one of light, you're going to do this darkness surrounding you and eventually hitting enemies in a pretty good AoE range. It's actually hitting enemies much further away than it seems, but it's also going to deal significant amounts of damage, and against most trash mobs it just throws them on their back. And even if it doesn't, I usually like equipping this with a shield in the other hand and using riposte counterattacks, which is going to be enough to immediately stagger enemies. For some reason, the poise damage on the weapon itself, even the base variant before this, is really good, so you definitely want to use it. Now, if you do want the light version of it, which I call the Disco Sword, you can actually do so by following this bridge to the west of the Shadow Keep, and you do so starting at the storehouse first floor. So from this point on, you're going to want to follow this, take up that lever downstairs, and eventually this is going to let you go by the dungeons nearby, go through like the cellars, eventually reaching the bridge, and you can then follow this exact path onto that side. There are a couple of sites of grace you can find on the way, with the Raw Ruins West being the last one. And once you are here, you only need one more step, which is to head over southwest through some of the nearby structures. Now, this is going to eventually bring you to an area with a ton of Kindred of Rot, so make absolutely sure that you're healing if you get hit. But to be honest, it shouldn't happen more than once or twice. And once you are at the edge of the cliff, pay attention to this pillar to the right side. The broken path ahead is actually going to be invisible. So simply stay in the middle of this track and just follow towards the final altar. And that's pretty much all you have to do. You can now even change your weapon into the, well, Sword of Light. And this, by the way, both works with the Stone Sword as well as with the Darkness version. You can actually interchange between these and change the one that you like the most. Now, in the case of the Sword of Light, this actually causes a bunch of disco beams to kind of branch out a little bit and deal damage in an area. Again, very reminiscent of a disco ball for some reason. Which is why I don't like it as much. Even though the damage starts instantaneously, it's not going to be as high unless all of those beams actually hit the target. Unlike the Darkness version, which just hits once and it hits everything. That's why I like that more. There's one more katana that I do want to talk about. Great katanas are actually quite great in the DLC, and the next one is the Rakshasa. So this is basically from this Eastern Nameless Mausoleum that we talked about previously. It also gives you a very, very strong armor set that pretty much boosts your damage up on everything, at the cost of also increasing the damage that you receive. But if you're good at dodging or get a bunch of upgrades, it's not going to matter as much. And what I love about this is that it kinda makes you almost indomitable, so you barely flinch if you get hit during its weapon special skill, which kinda acts almost like a mowing scythe. You're going to do these horizontal slashes continuously, almost like a buffed up version of the Rivers of Blood, but a much slower one, and one that can also stagger or interrupt enemies at times. So loving this. It is going to feel a bit slow. I think this is much better suited for PvP, because in trade-offs against enemies that don't flinch at all, you're maybe not going to come out of it intact, if you get my drift. But I love it. It looks really awesome. The Ashes of War cannot be changed, unfortunately. Now, there is one bonus weapon I haven't talked about, and that's because I kind of wish this was a bit better. It's, of course, the Starline Sword, a very popular option nowadays. And I really like this because I always love magical skill effects. This one comes with a line of stars, and it's a very cool, interesting effect where you kind of do these series of slashes with a final jump that kind of makes you disappear momentarily, and then follow up with a very strong overhead slash attack and spin attack, basically. This also scales, by the way, with intelligence as well as dexterity, so depending which component you want to boost, either the magical effect on the spell or the physical damage, you go with either the one or the other. You can also go full in intelligence, for example, get a ton of that if you only want to spam its special weapon skill. But I was kind of finding it lackluster compared to something like the Moon Veil, but if you don't want to cheese the whole game and maybe want a bit of a challenge, this can be right up your alley. And you actually get this from the demi-human queen Mauriga. That's with a G, by the way, a double G, right here at the hidden grove, which you're going to find at the Cerulean coast. So you're going to need to just follow down south this path from the nearby Elec River, which you're going to find southeast of that road coming from Castle Enzis, and you can just follow that path, go through a series of caves up until eventually you do reach the Cerulean coast. And once you do reach that Cerulean coast, you're going to want to make it to the right side and then follow up this path between two major buildings very close to the western site of Grace. So going between them, you're going to follow again this route, taking it this time around to the left side up until you eventually hit Charo's hidden grave, and you can just defeat, yeah, the boss and get it right away. Anyway, that's pretty much it with the weapons. Let me know down below which one of these you like, or if there's any other that you found to be very strong outside of the guide. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.